From the widening, deepening horror of Bosnia to Christie's, the fine art auctioneers in St James's, London, an unreal setting for the realities of war and the world's press awaiting some kind of message of hope. Lord Carrington, chairman of the EC Peace Conference, under pressure from the French especially for what his year of exasperating diplomatic shuttles have failed to achieve. Edgy, yes, at least though he has so far achieved a fragile EC and UN brokered peace in Croatia. Now, once again, it was Bosnia Herzegovina.
We'll get peace.
The leader of the Republic Serbian, Radovan Karadzic, was the first of three to arrive for a series of individual meetings with Lord Carrington. Upstairs, though, Lord Carrington was merely hearing restatements of what he already knew. His only claim for success today, that the three envoys had at least come to London. And as they spoke in Sarajevo itself, alongside the planes of the aid airlift, the terrible proof of how irrelevant the words of peace are to the warriors with the mortars and the snipers with the guns. This was the scene, Bosnians dodging the mercenary marksmen as the Serbian envoy was in London offering to help open land corridors for humanitarian relief, talking too of Serbian interest in an unconditional ceasefire. In London, ceasefire and humanitarian corridors were the Bosnian Serbs' words and promises for Lord Carrington and public consumption.
We do not want to achieve our goals, legitimate rights by war, but by political solutions.
But in reality, the subtext of mistrust and mutual hate is as stark as ever.
Well, we have already announced few unilateral ceasefires. Unfortunately, the other side misinterpreted it as our weakness, and they attacked us.
Which is why Lord Carrington concluded for the first time that, unlike in Croatia 6 months ago, a ceasefire cannot be achieved in Bosnia without first securing a constitutional settlement, a process which, even if it goes smoothly, could take months while the bloodletting continues.
Everybody's agreed to a ceasefire a great many times, but the ceasefire doesn't happen. And I think that we have come, the ambassador and I have certainly come to the conclusion that perhaps the best way of getting a ceasefire is to find some constitutional agreements which would render the hostilities unnecessary.
In Bonn, meanwhile, the German cabinet was cranking up the pressure on Serbia by announcing, on the face of it, government defiance of the German constitution to deploy the destroyer Bayern as part of the Western naval operation now being built up in the Adriatic to monitor the breaking of the UN sanctions against Serbia. But having seen Lord Carrington, the Bosnian foreign minister representing the Muslims viewed such Western military response with contempt, calling once again for military intervention instead of just humanitarian aid.
If the international community chooses not to intervene because of their domestic policies, domestic problems, then they should let us have weapons, for God's sake, because this is not fair, this is not right. By doing this, they lose some rights. The West loses the right to teach us lessons about civilization, about humanity.
Hitler is not history, claimed Mr. Selajic. He is living now in Bosnia, and the proof, he said, was the Serbian siege of Gorazde.
Of the world. I ask all of you to convey to the world that in town of Gorazde, which is a war situation, there are 70,000 people waiting for the world to help them. They are not going to be killed in a normal way, if there is a normal killing. They are going to be slaughtered like those 40,000 before.
And on those like Mr. Karadzic, the Serbian leader, who he's being asked to negotiate with.
Karadzic is proclaimed in Bosnia and Herzegovina a war criminal. I am not prepared to sit with child killers. Never.
It is a bleak backdrop against which the Foreign Secretary this afternoon set off on a 4-day trip to the Balkans as the current president of the EC Council.
We have to do our utmost to prevent this suffering continuing. It's not just a matter of relieving those who are already suffering. It's trying to prevent this going on in future. Thank you very much.
Such words have been used by Mr. Hurd's EC predecessors in the first year of the Yugoslav pogrom. Still, try he must. The Foreign Secretary first flew to Paris to meet French Foreign Minister Dumas for a clarification of French intentions on further military deployments in Bosnia. Tonight he'll be in the Slovenian capital Ljubljana. Tomorrow on to the Croatian capital Zagreb. Then on Friday Mr. Hurd will try to fly into Sarajevo. But even now, UN officials are not sure if his safety can be guaranteed or who might be there to meet him. Then the Serbian capital, Belgrade, for meetings on Saturday morning with at least the new federal Prime Minister, Mr. Panic, and the Serbian President, Slobodan Milosevic. On Saturday evening, Mr. Hurd will be in Skopje, capital of the republic denied recognition by the EC as Macedonia. Finally, on Sunday to Tirana, from where the Albanian government is watching fearfully for a Serbian incursion against ethnic Albanians in Kosovo, a scenario many Western governments also await with deep foreboding. By Sunday night, Mr. Hurd will be in Brussels, ready to chair his first foreign ministers' meeting as president of the EC Council. And tonight, yet another reminder of the horror. A Bosnian refugee camp in the Croatian town of Slavonski Brod, on the border between Bosnia and Croatia, shelled by the howitzers of advancing Serbian forces. At least 12 Croatian soldiers killed, 35 people injured. One incident, but a clear message: the guns don't fall silent when leaders accept Lord Carrington's invitation.